8 o'clock. We've got Cache Canada. They just joined us back in.
There we go.
And we've got Halemeister. And we've got Ian Lingle. And he is one of the organizers of the Midwest Geobash. And, of course, I'm Neil Moore. And tonight we're talking about
what's big.
Midwest Geobash. This is going to be a recap. I was there, and Halemeister was there. Dave and Karen, Cache Canada, they showed up for the day. And our organizer, one of our organizers, Ian, obviously was there. Actually, I think 3 of us were there for the weekend. So I'm going to start off with Jason Halemeister right here. Jason, just give us a quick recap of how you felt your weekend went. Jason, are you there?
Nope, he's not there.
Apparently. Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Why don't you give us a quick recap of how you felt your weekend went at the bash?
It was actually a really good weekend. Showed up and it was a little windy and I was a little bit worried I was not going to be able to set my tent up and my pop-up canopy. But after that, of course, the weather was great. Thanks for the organizers to order such nice weather. But beyond that, things we can control, everything went pretty smoothly as far as I could tell. And in fact, I was approached by, I can't remember his name, Mr. Young, Grand Potentate. Brian. Okay. I was approached by him at the end of the thing. He was there driving around in the golf cart, and I stopped him to give him some geocaching with Halemeister swag. And he says, "Is there anything that we could do better?" And I said, I'll get back to you on that. I can't really think of anything right now. And I have been trying to think of something, and I can't think of anything so much. It's been at the same place for a number of years now, and everybody knows the area, the grounds and everything just went very good as far as I can tell. No complaints from me at all.
All right. Cache Canada, this was your second time there, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So your first time there, did you camp the first time?
No, the first time we did only a day trip, and but we came in for the whole day. So we came early and we passed around a little bit. We did some stuff on site, and then we left.
We had to go get the dog.
Yeah, we have a dog in the back. We came this time, but it was only for a shorter time because we actually we had a lot of traffic that we had to fight to get there because Detroit is just ripped up. And we had to leave earlier. Oh, there's the Geo Dog. Maybe he can come and say hi.
Stay here.
So we have Cache Canada and Blake.
Cache Canada and Geo Dog Blake. Come here, buddy. Come on up here. Come on up. No, you're not getting away. Come on. Right. Up. No, he's not going to. Stupid dog.
So tell us then, compared to your first one, and then you showed up for Saturday's event.
You got to come up and see Dad, though. Come on.
Did you see any differences, and give us a recap of your day there?
The only difference that I saw and noticed from the one to the other was, well, it was 2 things actually. Hey,
sorry, technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties was the bugs were in a different building. The travel bugs, they were in a different building, so that kind of made it. I was like, oh no, we're supposed to be over here, so over there. But the what do you call those lab caches? The lab caches were much better this year as they were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they were just little tags on buildings and stuff, and I didn't like that so much. These ones, they were just so much more fun. They were a lot more creative. So that's what I noticed about that.
Right.
Yeah, they kind of just draw you in, and you started playing with them and doing them, and then other people would come around and work on them with you, and it was fun.
Yeah, I'd have to say this was my 6th Midwest Geobash, and the first 3 I day tripped on Saturday, and I enjoyed being there and enjoyed getting the caches and doing the lab caches, because I think the first year I went was actually may have been the first year they actually did lab caches, or maybe the second year. I'm not sure, but yeah, the lab caches this year were really well well done. And
Yeah,
the weather
kudos to those that put the lab caches together. Did a really good job. They were a lot of fun, and they matched with the theme of the event as well. So that was really good.
Yeah, and and this year the weather was much better than previous 2 years. I've camped the last 3 years, and man, that sweltering 90-95 degree heat during the day, but this year was actually quite pleasant. Even though it's still kind of hot, it was pretty pleasant. But I've been to six of the geobashes. I've been to 2 geo woodstocks, and last year's mega event, and then this year's giga event. I would still say that Midwest Geobash is, for me, is a funner event because it's a weekend long thing and everything is contained into one area. You know, you go to Geo Woodstock and you have the day that you're there, and yes, you can camp. Maybe you can camp on grounds, maybe you can't, but other events and other activities are away from the event. So that's really what I like about Midwest Geobash, is that you can be in one location and participate in many different activities. So, now that Ian's done drinking there, Ian, first question was this your first year as being an organizer, or have you always been part of that group?
No, I haven't always been part of the group. I started out volunteering probably back in 2013, and I kind of did a more and more volunteering over the years. I tried to do a lot more to help out the organizers that we did have, and it was actually the start of the event last year, not 2018, but the 2017 event. I was asked by the organizers that were there to step in and help them during the event, do a few extra things, and then kind of from then forward, I took a bigger role with the team and helped with the organization kind of throughout the whole event year this year. So this is really the first event year that I've done a lot of the planning with when I joined in with Brian and did that all this year. But yeah, I've been around for a while doing a lot of volunteering, if that helps answer the question.
Yeah. So as a previous year's participant, compare that to now having been involved. How do you see it differently?
Well, I tell you one thing. So it's the one thing that I learned is how much work goes into planning these events. I've done a lot of smaller events. I've done a lot of planning with like local organizations and stuff like that for local events, and I volunteered at other megas and things like that. But the actual planning that goes into all these things is just, it's crazy. Like we just started ramping up our year again to get ready for next year's event. Normally we take a couple weeks off after the event to kind of relax, spend some time with family and friends. I know Shannon, one of our other organizers, and myself, we both went on vacation. Russ is back into coaching, and Brian's been all over the place with friends and family and everything. So, but now we're getting back into it. It's almost a year-round commitment, and that's what I didn't realize when I got into this. But it's always a labor of love. For me personally, I as much as I enjoy going to events, I would much rather do something to give back to the geocaching community. You know, I've been around. I've been geocaching since 2007, so I've done a lot of taking, and you know, it's enjoyable for me to get out there and contribute and give back a little bit. So, but definitely a lot of work goes into it. It's just nice to see people smile. That's the other thing too, is when you're running around as a participant, you don't really, I didn't remember seeing everybody having a good time. Like I just kind of paying attention to myself, I guess. But you know, driving around the golf cart, walking around inside the arena, hanging out at the fires at night, just talking to people. It's a different experience getting to know everybody. So it's a good time.
All right. Dave and Karen, I just thought of a question for you. As cashers coming from Canada, is there anything for other Canadians or even people if they were coming up from Mexico for an event in the US? Are there things to consider for coming to an event in the US? Your microphone is off.
Are we good now?
Yep, you're good now.
Okay, we're good now.
You always have to consider about food because we can't take food across the border.
Yeah.
You can't take vegetables and meat and eggs and whatever.
They don't care much about firearms or anything. It's the apples and oranges they don't like.
which usually come from the U.S. They don't want us to bring them back. So.
And we got asked the last time we came geocaching. It wasn't for the Midwest Geobash book. Yeah, all the guy asked, he goes, "Hey, you don't have it?" And we're after.
This is at the border.
This is more fun over here. He goes, "Okay, have a good day."
You're cutting in and out there a little bit. Did you guys have them cut out?
Oh,
yeah,
a little bit.
Could you repeat that then real quick?
Just that the border guide wanted to know why we were going into Michigan to go geocaching, why we just didn't stay in Canada. And we said, well, there's more fun geocaches in Michigan.
Well, at least you had
other than that, though, there's not much else I can think of that.
We've never had any problems like between our geocaching and reenacting, which we do reenacting for the War of 1812. That's a little harder because you have a musket or a sword, but usually it's just where are you going? What are you doing? Okay, have fun. Never an issue.
Yeah. So mainly it's the border, and then once you get there, I mean, everything's laid out for you.
Yeah.
Sure. All right.
So.
All right. If anybody else has a question for Ian, feel free to chime in with a question.
We're getting dark.
We are.
All right.
Put your flashlight on.
We've had Canada come in, so that's the dark side of geocaching, you're right? All right. So, Ian, a question for you. You said that you've now started into your planning for next year. Now, when we're at the event, you announced the theme for next year.
Yep.
Is that a long and agonizing process to come up with your theme and then to have it even before you have the event?
So to my knowledge, this is the first year that we actually announced next year's theme while the event was happening. And that was something that Brian and I had talked about. Russ and Shannon got involved in. We kind of all got together and hatched this master plan that we were going to kind of do that unveiling thing that we did at the closing ceremony. The process to get the theme sometimes is tricky because this is going to be our 15th year we're going on. We've done a lot of themes already, obviously, in the past 14 seasons. So it can be difficult, trying to find things that are easy to decorate with and make for some fun, obviously. But yeah, we have a lot of good people in the geocaching community that really give us some good feedback, good suggestions. So it wasn't that difficult a process actually. But yeah, we got it done. We got the banner there to unveil everything. So that kind of allowed us to have our couple of weeks of downtime after the event because we did that ahead of time this year, which was nice. So that was enjoyable.
So can you remind us what the theme is for next year and tell us what your committee's thoughts are behind that theme?
Sure. So the theme, there's not really a title for it yet. It's a medieval theme, or a Knights of the Round Table theme. Different people have coined it, Birds of the Round Table. We always do our bird mascots. So we haven't come up with the exact name of it yet, but it'll be there. So the mascot's going to be the raven. So we're having the bird mascot again, to kind of go with that medieval theme. The thought behind it was, again, it's just something that we hadn't done before, or something that we could we think we could really do some cool decorations with, which is always one of the more fun parts of the event weekend. For anybody that's been there, you know that there's always campsites being decorated. The campsite decorating contest is always popular. So we want to make sure that people have an opportunity to decorate. We can't do something so obscure that you can't find decorations. But at the same time, you got to do something that's cool enough that people are going to want to decorate, right? So we're thinking the dragons, the knights, and the shields, and the armor, and all that stuff. It make for a pretty cool theme, and so we think we're going to have fun with it this year, hopefully. So that's the goal.
Okay. So Halemeister,
Yes.
tell me, or tell everybody that's watching, what were one or two of your favorite things from the weekend?
I guess probably my number one thing was just hanging around with some new people there at the Area 616? Is that the number?
Yes, the 616.
So
yeah.
I remember. Yeah, the Area 616 area there. I hung around with Neil and Bob Billy, and there was a bunch of new cashers there. I can't name them all.
Actually, you didn't hang around with me very much. You hung around with Bob Billy. You left me sitting in the car.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's kind of a bad day, I guess, for you anyway. not for me and Bob Billy. We had bacon, so that was good.
Yeah.
But no, just hanging around with you guys was good. And Dave and Karen came down, which was unexpected as well too. That was probably my number one thing, is hanging around with the people. Got to go to the poker run, and basically jumped in a van with a bunch of people I didn't really know a whole lot of, other than Bob Billy. He was there. And again, where were you at? I can't remember where we left you, but
Yeah.
but anyway, so yeah, it's just being with the guys, and of course, this is my first Midwest Geobash as a vlogger, so I had that in mind as well too, to make videos and try some new things and some new aspects of where I can make a video and what I can make a video about and things like that. So those were my favorite things about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Ian, even though you're an organizer, I'm sure you still partook of some of the activities. What would you say your favorite part of the weekend is?
Honestly, my favorite part is always the setup. I'm usually there on Wednesday setting stuff up, and it's kind of, I've always been kind of a behind the scenes guy. I've always enjoyed kind of making things go before people get there, and making sure things are kind of in order there. But other than that, two things really stuck out to me this year. Number one was the poker run, which you mentioned. But Mike, one of our other organizers, Mike, for years has run our poker run. And because of some family commitments, he couldn't make it to the event this year. So they kind of left me and Russ to run the poker run, and that was an adventure. But we really had a good time with it. So Russ and I had fun there, and we always have great volunteers too. So we had a couple of guys, Jeff and Bill, that stepped up and helped us run that poker run, the card turn in and all that stuff. And they have big booming voices, a lot louder than mine. So they were able to help us there. So that was a good time. The other part, which I believe David mentioned earlier, or might have been Jason, possibly, the lab caches, or all of you guys probably mentioned the lab caches, but those are probably my favorite lab caches that I've ever done. that was a team out of Pittsburgh headed up those lab caches for us. They volunteered to do those. Renruts is their caching name. Was Curtis and Carrie and all of their friends. They had a whole crew of people. It was insane.
Wow.
They had there might have been 15 of them that had helped out throughout the year building those lab caches and volunteering throughout the weekend as well. But yeah, I actually had a chance to work with Carrie and Curtis and their crew prior to Bash weekend to work on kind of mapping out where the lab caches were going to go, kind of what the plan was for those. We took a trip up to Wasion a few weeks prior. So I got a little bit of a chance to beta test it. I also got to kind of beta test it once they got them out on the grounds on Wednesday or Thursday. But the amount of work that they put into those lab caches, I told them when they were there, I said, you guys put significantly more work into this than I ever think that I could, possibly do myself. So shout out to them. And I've heard nothing but good things about the labs. They're coming back next year to do it again. So I don't know how they're going to top what they did this year, but it's going to be cool to see what they do. So we'll have a good time. But yeah, those are my two favorites.
Just tell them to leave that U-shaped one with the holes in it, where you had to pour the water in. Tell them to leave that one back at home.
That was the best one. That was my favorite.
Yeah, I think I had more water down the front of me after that than wow. What we have? Probably 15 people.
Yeah,
I don't know, 15 or 20 people working on that.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
And one of them was a clown. Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah, a scary clown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I liked about the lab caches this year, not only that they were, you were more involved in actually playing the game, but you had volunteers there to help in it, kind of pull you into the game. And one of the volunteers is a good friend of mine, and he would really talk it up. And the lady doing the lab cache next to him, she's like, "Oh, you need to have Tim do it. You need to have Tim explain the game because he's so much better at it." And he would really get people worked up. But the volunteers there to help kind of build your excitement to play the game or to do the lab cache, that I thought that was good. It just seemed like you were a little bit more involved in the lab cache rather than just, as Dave said a couple years ago, just walking up and finding the word somewhere stuck on the side of the building.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, job well done.
I'll pass that along to them. I'll tell you what, man, they were fantastic, and it was kind of crazy too. I don't mean to cut you off, Neil, but they, in addition to doing all those labs, their entire group volunteered throughout the entire weekend. One of their Rich got up at 6 a.m. and helped me serve pancakes on Sunday morning for our pancake breakfast. He brought his grill over, hooked up the propane, cooking pancakes with me. Like they're just, I'll tell you what, their group especially, but Neil, you just mentioned the volunteers for the lab caches. All we do is give these people some swag to help us out, and the amount of effort that they put in to helping make our event better is just incredible. Like we have the best volunteers, and I mean that. I think we really have the best volunteers around, and that really is what makes this event keep happening every year. It wouldn't happen without the hundreds of people that volunteer every year. So yeah, I'm glad you had a good experience with them, because that makes me feel even better. So
Yeah.
Sorry, Neil. They were almost like gadget caches in some cases. Yeah. Like a simple gadget cache, but that made it a lot of fun.
And we've done more of those this year. So
yeah, we're
Makes it more
finding
interesting.
gadget caches in our province now that we know some people that are working on them, and that's what they were like, and it just was a lot of fun.
And it was nice too, because you had some of the caches. It was more than one person that would participate to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you weren't working just by yourself. There would be people floating in and out, and you could see that in our little video. I don't remember which one it was with the 1 minute video or the other one, but I think we only did a 1 minute video. But you could see that where there's people interacting with each other, and that was really cool. You know, and we actually got to find people that way that knew us, which was like, wow,
that was really
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, job well done.
Yes.
Yeah, and as you're standing by the birdhouse pushing the button and looking around to see if somebody
That
else
one
is
got
finding-
us.
Yeah.
We're like, oh.
No, when we were pushing the birdhouse one, people are like, "What? They're snickering at you."
Yeah,
We enjoyed testing that one for sure. I had a friend of mine with me, and I had already tested it once, but I took him with me to kind of show him the lab caches and make sure they all worked still before we launched them and everything. And I stood there pushing the button, and you just see him walking around, and he took him a minute, and then he finally found it, and kind of looked back at me with that what'd you do to me kind of face.
Need a video hookup for that to watch
Right.
people's expressions.
yeah. I think when we were doing that one, I think Jason, he found the button and was pushing it, and there's 4 or 5 of us standing there looking around trying to figure out. And it's like as the day, and this was early on, and we could finally kind of hear it in the distance. But as the day went on, you'd see people standing there pushing the button, and it was too loud. You couldn't hear it. So there'd be somebody standing over there. They're like yelling, "Hey, it's over here!" It's like they're ringing the doorbell, and you got to find out where they're at.
Yeah, and that was us.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed the newspaper box one. That was my favorite one personally. Was the newspaper box. I just thought that was just crazy creative, and Curtis actually put a trail cam there to get some of those reactions, like you said. I don't know where the video ended up. I think I saw it on Facebook somewhere, but it was really cool to see some people just smiling, having a good time, and really enjoying that cache for all the work you put into it. So that was cool.
Yeah, that one actually ended up being my 100th lab cache, so that was a good one for me as well.
Oh my goodness.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my favorite one, and I got some video of it. Actually, it wasn't me. I didn't do that lab cache. Was the fortune teller? Somebody else did that one, and we got video of that. Unfortunately, the wind noise is so bad on the camera, it couldn't catch everything. I'll probably still end up using it, but I had fun with the girl that was doing that one. The gentleman that did the lab cache, his name's Bob. He walks up to her, and it's a young girl. I don't know, she was 14, 15 years old, and she's sitting there and says, "So are you a small, medium, at large?" And she's like, "What? I don't understand. Are you a small, medium, at large?" She just had this blank look on her face, and I'm like, "That's fine. Just tell me my fortune."
Yeah,
that was fun. That was a fun one. If interacting with her and doing the, as she's trying to be this fortune teller. I mean, the code word is sitting right there, and I didn't even notice it. I was just kind of playing off her, but it was fun just to hear what she had to say and reading the cards and all that stuff. So I enjoyed the newspaper box with the strongman, but the medium, that was probably my favorite.
Definitely.
Any other questions? I haven't seen any questions in the chat. I've been trying to keep an eye on the chat room, but I haven't seen anything in there. They're talking about some other mega coming up, but we're not going to talk about that until next week.
I have a question for Ian. Maybe he knows, or maybe he doesn't know. Is there any plans on changing anything a venue or maybe a layout of a venue or anything like that? Or are we all just kind of thinking about keeping it the same?
Yeah, so it's actually something that's asked a lot. People ask all the time, why don't you move around or you change this up? To be honest with you, I'm in the camp that really enjoys having the event in one place. Just so you guys know where my stance is, but we've talked about it as a group. I don't think right now there's a plan in the works for that. I can tell you right now that 2019 is going to be back in Wasion. But it comes up. But the real thing we have to think about if we ever consider something like that is the challenges that we would face basically starting all over again. And the reason that we're able to have a lot of success every year and have things a certain way is because of our familiarity with the local area. We have a lot of help from local cashers. We have, we have a good relationship with the fairgrounds staff there, for setting up our camping, setting up our, getting into the facilities and all that. The other thing too is the size of this event, kind of limits where the event can go. Yeah. Especially when you consider that, like Neil said very early, everything's all in one place, right? So we do everything from camping to the event, everything all in one location, right? So theoretically, if you didn't want to, you wouldn't have to leave the fairgrounds at all the entire weekend. And that's not something that's easy to do anywhere else, to have that many campsites all in one place, to have the buildings large enough that we need. Now we've got air conditioning that we can use for our store as of this year and last year. That was a new thing. So obviously if things come up, your second part of your question was changing the layout of things. Obviously as things happen and we learn from things over the years, that could always change too. I'm not ruling out either, obviously, but if you think about it, for those of you that were there in 2017, that was the first year that our Area 51 with our nightly bonfires moved to the north end of the fairgrounds from where it had been for the past 8 years at the south end. That was a huge change. That freaked everybody out and messed up all of our camping, all of that. So I think we're still trying to get used to that before we make more changes. But like I said, it's not to say we're not going to change things up again. This year we did change the layout. One of you guys had mentioned where the bugs were. Jason, I think that was you. We moved the travel bugs and everything into one area for kind of like a welcome center, museum kind of thing. We put out a display of all of our old coins. I have the boards actually sitting over here, but we built a display of all the past Midwest Geobash coins. We have all these old banners that we put up and stuff like that, just to kind of relive the history a little bit and kind of remember where we came from to get here. And that was nice having that in one central location because it was actually between the store and the main arena, so people were coming through there the whole time. The food vendors were kind of right there. So personally, the layout this year, I enjoyed having everything kind of centrally located instead of having the travel bugs off in that corner over there. But it's always a work in progress, to give you a short answer. So things could change, but I thought we had fun. So
I thought everything was laid out great, and I thought everything was, like I said earlier, everything worked out well, and even the Area 51 stuck off in the corner like that, it tends to get loud and rambunctious and things. That's the nature of it.
Right.
And having it off to that side was probably maybe a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Area 51, I prefer where it's at now rather than where it was before. I think probably some of the people that really like to participate in the Area 51 and like to be camped close to it may be a little upset, but as far as a person who goes, participates for a couple hours and then leaves. Well, except for Saturday night, I think we were there till what, 2 in the morning. I don't know. But, should have left at 11, but I like where it's at now myself. It just seems a little more open. You feel like you have some room. My question, there was a question in the live chat, and it was to me, but I'm going to spread it out to everybody. What was your least favorite lab cache? And I'll just start with it. Mine was probably the duck pond thing. That one didn't throw me so much. So.
The ones that we did.
Yeah, I think I agree with the duck pond. Yeah. Yeah, the duck pond was kind of, you get that at fairgrounds and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were a little kid, like I think the Geo Trail, they had the little baby there, and that might have been good for them, or good for little kids. So it's not our thing, unless you go fishing. I can't catch fish, so there you go. I don't know.
And when you compare it to the newspaper stand one, and then there was one that was hanging from like some rafters or something that had a ball in it, you had to move the ball around, and you got the tube that had the water in, all these cool ones, right? And you got the duck pond one. It's like, all right, I mean, I guess one of them has to be the weakest link, but that was probably the one.
Yeah. Well, and like Dave said, if there's lots of kids there, so for the little kids, it was probably, they probably didn't care about finding an answer to a question. They're just pulling ducks out. They're thinking they're going to get a piece of candy when they're done or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But not that it was a bad lab cache. It's just like Jason said. It's just something's gotta
it
be
was
done.
it was okay. There was nothing special. But
So. All right. It seemed like there was another. Oh, that was a question about how much bacon Bob Billy ate. But it's not so much the amount of bacon; it's the amount of bacon grease he used to wash it down with.
That's it. That's it.
That's the only question that we have is if we come next year, is Bob Billy going to allow us to have any bacon? Because she's a bacon fiend. So there might be a fight between Bob Billy and Lyric Glass.
Well, it will depend on if you're bringing American bacon or if you're bringing that Canadian bacon. That's
well, we could. No, see, we can't bring it across the
Bring it
border.
across the border.
Oh,
If we do, the border guards will have a good feast.
Yeah.
there you go.
Good stuff.
Let's see. Let's checking out the live chat here. Yeah, the frugal homemaker. She says that the toddlers like the duck pond, which makes sense. And probably the kids would probably like the balloon pop, the darts and the balloons. That's probably a good one for them too. Yeah. All right. So we still got another 20 minutes. So I have a question, Ian. And whenever I say your name, I always think of my big fat Greek wedding. So Ian, we still got another 20 minutes.
Color's much better.
So my question is, okay, this is my 6th year. I pretty much don't need to look at the map for getting caches on the fairgrounds. A blind pig could find these caches. So next year I might go around with a white cane and just tap on the phone pole. And that's not a criticism. I'm just wondering, is there talk about trying to change that part up a little bit? The ones in the woods, they can move around a little bit. You got some space there. On the fairgrounds, and in the last couple years, they've had some stone hide-keys that they put out in the field, and it's like they get moved.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So, and not that I don't go to add. I mean, it's nice to add the numbers to my stats, but I don't go to bash anymore for adding numbers. I mean, I go pick them up, whatever, but to bring this long, drawn-out thing back around, is there talk of changing up the caches that are hidden on the fairgrounds?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And I think it's hilarious you brought that up because we actually talked about that again not too long ago. We actually sent out a post-event survey that we've done. This is the second year we've done it, and to try to get some feedback from people. And that always comes up. It always comes up that, hey, could you switch it up a little? Could you do this? Like you said, it's really difficult. That's kind of, to go back to what Jason asked earlier about switching venues and stuff. That's kind of the downfall of being in the same place since 2009. You know what I mean? Everything's been done at least once, it feels like. So what we asked this year, we worked with a lot of the locals this year, who did a really great job of putting the caches out. We tried to give them as much wiggle room as we could to let them be creative and things like that. You know, they kind of took the lead on where they're putting them and things like that. We didn't really give them a whole lot of direction there, aside from asking them to, you know, just try to make them fun, try to make them good. So I think for the sake of they're really limited on what they can do, they try to go more towards the creative route more so than the, you know, find a new place kind of thing. So for those of you that did the caches, Neil, I loved your video, by the way. I think you had Grace with you at one point, and you guys went out caching. Yeah, the tent out in the woods. Your filter was great for the night cache, by the way. I wish I could figure out how to make my camera look that good at 4 o'clock in the morning. But the caches, they always do a great job trying to make them creative. They got a great group of people up there in Northwest Ohio. And again, it's just a labor of love for them. They're big caches. They love, you know, seeing the logs people leave them. So it's really tough to put them in new places because we've pretty much used them all. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think this year, the one thing we did ask them is if we could try to get a few new caches out around town, because that's something else that we had heard. You know, with us, like I said, being limited on the fairgrounds with what we can do, it's nice to give people a few extra opportunities to go out around town and get a few extra smileys. Sometimes those are in the same places too, because, you know, Wasion's a relatively small place. But I think at one point I looked, there were like 70 plus caches hidden within like the last 2 months before Bash, when I had looked within, you know, 5 miles of the event. So that was a big jump this year compared to where we've been before. So yeah, caching is definitely something we're trying to bring back to the front of their brain, you know. So
right, yeah, it's going out for the poker run, you know, with 5 of us in the car, and Jason was with us this year. But even so, from year to year, as you come back during the poker run, you're picking up caches here and there. And then maybe on Saturday or Friday afternoon, you're out doing some more caching. And it's like, okay, this is my 6th year there. Next year, I guess I'm going to have to break out the bike and get on the bike trail, because that's about all that's left for me out there. So I guess my request would be, maybe if your cache hiders could find new places, or if they have spots open on the bike trail or whatever. You know, Handyman has some great caches out there. His Lost His Toolbox one is just nasty, but one of my favorites. Yeah, I guess it would be finding new places for some caches, even not inside the fairgrounds, but even if they were just on the overpasses, or, you know, under the overpass.
Neil, if I could interrupt,
Sure.
that's what the 2 events that we have here in Ontario that are bigger. There used to be a COG event. It's a Central Ontario Geocaches, and it ran, I think, 10 years as a mega, but it's gone. But we have the LNA, which is in Eastern Ontario, and the one we're going to this Saturday is the GAGAFAB, which is It's hard to say.
Sounds disgusting.
Yeah, it does. Wait for the video. It's not quite a mega. It's almost up there. But both of those events, what they always do is they put out large series of caches each year, so they have something to go to for those people that want to cache for more things. So I'm not sure how exactly they do it year over year, whether they archive something, and because the one out east, I don't even look at it, but because it's outside of our zone. But every year there's new caches, and they stipulate that they try to ask you not to go to the cache until a certain time. People do. We accidentally did the one year. We're like, oh, we're there too early, so we signed the back of the log. We didn't log it till after the first to find was done. But yeah, those both events, one that we're going to this Saturday, they just put out a river series. People are already doing it, but for those people that are coming to the event this Saturday, they can do it then. And then they also put out a GeoArt. And to me, it looks like the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know what that's doing in Ontario, but it's a big horseshoe. And I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, and it's puzzles, so there's no way I'm doing it unless somebody saw
horseshoe.
Yeah. Oh, the golden horseshoe. Okay, now it makes sense. London Westy, he's not the brightest candle in the candelabra there, so that's why I have her along. Everybody knows that. Everybody has to know that by now. Anyway, so that's what they do. Those two events, they put out a lot of caches each year. It's always something different always, and they stick around. They do stick around. If you didn't get them this year, they'll be there next year. And I don't know where they come up with the room, but they do. They have a lot of.
Yeah, we have a couple events here in Michigan. One is at a state park, and they just had it in August. But there are, I think, 62 caches within this probably a mile and a half square state park. But like, you go there and you get a list of the new caches, but the caches from last year are still out, and they give you that list so you can find them and sign them. So you can really, over that weekend, get 120 some odd caches. And
going caching in Georgia, they do the same thing. They have a list of caches, and it's coordinated at that point. People load them into their GPS right there, and it's a lot of caches. I saw the list when we were there in 2016. It was just like, I couldn't figure out how you could get them all into GPS that fast, but that's how they did it. Yeah,
that's the Sleepy Hollow event. That's what they do. You walk up with your GPS, and they load the previous years and the new ones.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's Sleepy Hollow event. They do that, and then Belle Isle, which is Detroit, and they do that at that one as well. So yeah,
Belle Isle. I've always wanted to go to that. I have a friend who goes to that every year, and it's just whatever weekend it is. It's just not. It doesn't jive with our schedule. So unfortunately, we never get to go.
Yeah,
it's close. It's not that far away.
Closer to you than it is to me, probably.
That's probably true.
Yeah, but I like the idea of the GeoArt. With the Midwest Geobash. Since you're doing new caches, maybe do some GeoArt where people need to figure out some trivia to get records or whatever. That'd be kind of fun.
MWGB, that's a lot of caches.
that actually came up in conversation too, that exact thing. So
awesome.
And then we realized how many caches that would actually entail hiding.
Yes.
It hasn't gotten shot down yet entirely, so we'll see what happens going forward. That hopefully, if we get in touch with that local group that the Northwest Ohio folks that helped us this year, maybe it's a possibility. So we're just going to give them some more advance notice, maybe. So
yeah.
Well, good luck.
I have a question that came into Halemeister HQ here via text message from somebody that's watching but is having trouble commenting. Dave and Karen talked about not being able to bring Canadian bacon across the border. The question is, why do we have Canadian maple syrup and Canadian Club whiskey here in the United States then?
Oh, but that's special export, although that might change. Never know. That might not be allowed soon. But I'm glad you do, because I'll be hitting up your stores. Oh, hey, you can make them pancakes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, she makes killer pancakes.
Yeah.
So you get the griddle going, we'll make pancakes.
You got it.
And just keep Billy Billy away from the bacon.
I can bring maple syrup across though, because it's bottled.
Well, you can bring maple syrup. We'll let you do that.
Yeah.
That was
Maple syrup isn't a problem.
that was the one thing that Jason and I talked about doing Sunday morning was going to the pancake breakfast, and we never made it there. I think I slept in too late or something, or was busy getting my tent packed up, but I never made it.
Well, next year maybe personal pancakes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
If that's
Now,
okay with you.
now they're talking about cashing in Canada.
Remember the eggs.
So I was just reading the chat room there. They're talking about cashing in Canada. And I went to Canada a couple times, and it seems like you guys are getting a lot more power trails, at least over in the Windsor area. And it seems like there's more bike trails that are getting those power trails. I went over there to do some caching with some YouTuber guy, and he left the neighborhood for the weekend while I was there. So.
Yeah, he went ice canoeing.
Yeah.
Well,
So then when he came to my neighborhood, I moved.
He left town.
Well, we were just up in the geocaching capital of Canada, and they have a lot of gadget caches that are really interesting to figure out, that take a lot of brain power, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's the other side of Toronto, but
How far of a drive is that from where you're at?
It's about 4.5 hours.
without stops,
With-
without
yeah.
hitting a geocache on the way.
Yeah, no geocache stops. You just drive there and you're good.
So it's a
But they're
3-day
very-
trip.
Yeah.
But it's
2
they're
days.
very welcoming, and the caches are just amazing. They're a lot of fun, but you can't do them all in one day.
There's 150. You do 150 and you get the free coin. We purchased a coin just as a commemorative thing,
But the caches take quite a while to do because you got to figure them out.
especially we couldn't see the light. There was one. It's called "Can You See the Light?" We couldn't figure out to save our lives.
So we had to call a friend for
The
that one.
PAF, phone a friend.
Yeah.
And then finally it was like, oh, that's how you do it.
That's the way it always goes.
Yeah.
So we've been up at Silent Lake as well in that area, and there's lots of canoe caches up there. It's just gorgeous area.
We're gifted in Ontario with probably well, except for Minnesota. I think Minnesota sounds Canadian. I think geocaching vlogger just did some video. He shared a video about Minnesota, and it sounded like Ontario. We're gifted with a very large amount of fresh lakes.
Mhm.
They're all very small, and we just did about 50 or 60 geocaches on one lake on two ends, and then some other people went to another lake, and then they went to a river, and it was just awesome. You can almost paddle cache every weekend for the whole summer and not hit the same lake twice.
Wow.
Nate the Great wants to know what city that's in. The gadget caches. What city?
Gadget
is
caches. The geocaching capital of Canada is in a small little kind of a hamlet called Wilberforce, and Wilberforce. It's about 3 hours, maybe 2, north of Toronto. It's between Toronto and Algonquin Provincial Park. So it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's a beautiful middle of nowhere. There's lots of lakes, really nice trees, rocks, and windy roads. But it covers 5 townships, so they've all worked together to try to build the tourism in the area, and it did work. We stayed in a hotel the one time we went up there, and we ate in a restaurant right there at Tupper Tea Turtles headquarters, right across the road. We've eaten there twice now, so it.
And we got
it's
to
working.
meet part of Tupper.
Yeah, I can't
Easy for
say
you
it. Yeah,
Tupper Tea Turtle. We got to meet one member of Tupper Tea
yeah.
Turtle.
So.
So,
There's another place we have that just started. It's called Orano. I did a video on it. It's just east of Toronto. So you take the T's out of Toronto and you get Orano. And the guy is working with the township there to try to increase traffic into that small area. And he's got about I think 40 gadget caches, and some of
They're
them
really
are quite good. There was one, it took us quite a bit of time, and 2 9-volt batteries at a total of
So,
$16 to get
We
into it.
didn't take 9-volt batteries,
Yeah.
so we had to come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But
But we
they're
used those
very-
same 9-volt batteries to get into the cache that we couldn't figure out for the longest time, but we
yes.
got it.
So there's lots of fun caches up this way if you're making the trip.
So yeah, if you thinking about traveling to Ontario, the geocaching capital of Canada, you could if you just Google that, you'll get the link to their Geo Tour website. It is awesome. You could spend probably 4 days. I've heard somebody did all 150 in 3 days.
That's too much.
But it's a lot
It
of
took
work.
us too long.
But I'd like to spread it out to like a whole week's worth, not all at once, but several trips.
But it's just they're so unique that each one you want to kind of enjoy and not have too many at once. So they just you don't want them to blur together. So.
Yeah, they hired a carpenter to build all the little boxes that they've used for all the gadget caches, and some of them are spectacular.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Josh went to Germany. There's a company that's making the geocaches, so that does make it nice when you have a community that's committed to supporting that hobby.
Yeah.
That way you don't have people calling in the bomb squad and everything.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing. They have elaborate caches that don't get muggled as much because the community knows that if they leave it there, people will come and support the community.
Yeah.
So they have these elaborate caches, but they don't get.
And that's what
damaged.
Jason is. I think Jason is finding with having the Midwest Geobash in one area, the community really gets involved. But if you move that, you've lost that. Now you've got to build that all over again, and that is not easy. I haven't done big geocaching events like that, but I've done big 1812 events, and it's a lot of work. So I understand what Jason's gone through and the groups that do that.
You mean Ian, but that's fine. We know.
Sorry,
who
Ian.
you're
Sorry,
talking
I'm not Jay. Yeah, Ian. Yeah, sorry. Jason's
Ian, I
just
don't know
sitting there. He's just drinking his beer.
I knew what you meant.
Oh no, not beer.
Oh,
You
Pepsi.
want to know by
Mountain
now?
Dew.
Mountain Dew, right?
Ah, there we go. Now we're with the Mountain Dew. All right.
That's right.
Megalomaniac wine.
Oh, Coca-Cola. There you go.
about. All right.
No
And
advertising here. No advertising.
Yeah, it's not even Coca-Cola. It's pomegranate grape cranberry juice or something.
Ooh.
Something that's good for my colon.
A little bit healthier.
Yeah, better than bacon.
No, nothing's better.
No,
than
better for you than bacon.
Oh, well, no,
Better
bacon
than
is actually
bacon.
good for you. Lots of protein.
So we're getting close here. We got a couple minutes. So from my screen, I'm going to start from the left and work my way to the right. Dave and Karen, just a quick recap on Midwest Geobash this year. And are you planning on coming back next year?
Yes, we're
yes.
going to camp the whole weekend next time. So.
It's on our schedule to go from Thursday all the way to Sunday. And it's actually closer to go to the Midwest Geobash than it is LNA. If they get the highway fixed and we don't have to go through Detroit.
Yeah.
All right. Halemeister. Quick comments coming back next year.
Dave and Karen are coming. He's not coming now.
Yeah, you took all his beer.
Took all his beer. We're bringing you beer. We can bring that across the border.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Canadian
Oh,
beer.
I can hear you. Yeah, you were froze up there for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm hoping to come. Obviously, I had such a great time this year, but time will tell, and we'll see what happens as time gets closer.
All right. Ian, you coming back next year?
I do plan on coming back next year.
They hope.
Yeah, Russ and Brian actually asked me that same question a few weeks ago. They asked me if I was tired yet. But no, I'll be there next year. You asked David what you ask what the favorite thing was. My favorite thing from this year was just getting a chance to talk to everybody. I like people, so I wish I would have had more time to talk to you guys. I think I ran into you for all of 2.5 minutes inside Spangler there
Yeah.
when I was running around just in time to get you set up there at the table for a couple minutes. So we'll have to work on that next year. We'll get that taken care of ahead of time. So
yeah. Well, I think next year we'll have a little bit better organization, have some stuff. Hopefully Geocaching Adam can join us next year. He was planning on it this year and had some issues. So, and if we get Geo Trails back there, we can have a good contingent of YouTubers there to really support the event. So probably my recap would be that Midwest Geobash is one of my favorite events that I look forward to now that I've been there and camped. I really think that for someone to enjoy the bash to its full extent, you need to go and camp Thursday through Sunday morning. Partake in every, you can go to Area 51. You don't have to drink. It's just a time where you can be loud and have some fun. People watch if that's your thing. Maybe get into a game of rock, paper, scissors. You never know. Yeah. So, but just the whole event, I do look forward to it. The poker run, the caches, meeting people. Now that I've been on YouTube for a little bit, it's fun to have people come up and say, "Hey, I know you," and so that one person that I meet every year that says they know me, it's kind of fun. So, but for those that are either in the chat room, all 12 of you, or people that watch on the replay, if you have not been to Midwest Geobash, I would highly recommend you go, even if you camp for one night. If you make it Friday and Saturday, or Saturday to Sunday, whatever, Thursday to Friday even, I would suggest you make that and go and enjoy it. I've not been to West Bend. I've not been to a couple of the other, I've never been to Moga or whatever. So I can't compare them, but all I know is I do have a good time at Midwest Geobash, and it's always been a fun time. So thank you, Dave and Karen. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Question for Ian real quick before we go here.
Sure.
Is there any plans, or is there any way you could put Cache Canada's, Neil Moore's, and my videos that I made from the Midwest Geobash on the website for next year as like a little teaser for people to click on and see what's going on?
Yeah. So I actually sent Neil an email a few weeks ago asking for links to a few videos. So I can definitely send it to you guys too. So if you guys haven't seen, I spent some time along with Brian and Shannon and some of the others trying to put together kind of a media collection, media database thing on our website that houses some of our highlight videos, previous year photos, things like that. So I'd love to put some videos on there as well. So my goal eventually is to have a really nice kind of media collection. So if somebody that's never been to Midwest Geobash before can go on there and they can kind of see 10 different perspectives from the group picture to the digital logbook that we did this year. They can just see whatever they want, whether it's a picture or a video, and kind of get an idea for themselves of what they're getting themselves into before they get there. But yeah, so I definitely something we could do. So
at least they'll know where not to go into the porta potty because Bob Billy might be in there sleeping.
Give it at least a
warning.
I'll slide over, Or, I'm sorry, Bob Billy, he'll slide over so you can use the facilities.
Does he need us to rent out part of our tent? It's a big tent.
No, he's fine with a porta john.
All right, you keep him over there.
All right. Well, Dave and Karen, Cache Canada, thanks for joining us tonight. And
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
Good. And Jason, thanks for joining me on this endeavor. And Ian, thanks for joining us and giving us the inside scoop and letting us know what goes on behind the scenes. I've had a great time tonight, and I think everybody in the chat room has enjoyed the chat. So we want to thank everybody, and we'll see you hopefully sometime soon live, either on Cash Tales or on Geocaching with Halemeister, or a 1 Minute Wednesday or something on Cache Canada. So have a good night, everybody. We'll see you.
Good night.
See ya.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.